Oh, wait.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about independent events and dependent events. And both of those are examples of what? Yes.
Events.
Events, perfect. So in this box where we have overall concept, I want you to write the words events. Now, let's talk about independent events first. Anybody remember what an independent event is?
When you do it by yourself.
You are by yourself. So this thing happens and it doesn't depend on something else. What else do you know about independent events? Things that don't depend on something else.
They're sometimes funner.
They are sometimes funner.
Mhm.
Tell me more about why they're funner.
Well, because, you know, it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing.
You get to pick.
You get to pick. That's excellent. Now, when you get to pick, do you get to pick over and over again?
Yeah, as many times as I want to.
Yes. So we're going to call that replacement because you get to replace the fun as many times as you want to. What else happens when it's funner and you're by yourself? And one event.
I get in trouble.
Sometimes you do get in trouble. So sometimes we do the thing we're not supposed to do and it happens multiple times, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then I get in really big trouble.
Yeah.
Yes. And so if you're the only one getting in trouble, is your probability dependent on something else?
Maybe how many times I did what I wasn't supposed to do.
Maybe. So in that case, the probability is multiplied together, but it's multiplied by however many people are getting in trouble, right? And everybody determines their own amount of trouble, right?
Yeah, because like Courtney never gets in trouble.
That's okay. Somebody has to bail y'all out. Now, let's talk about when things are dependent on one another. So let's talk about dependent events. So if you go to the party by yourself, give me an example of when your party attendance might be dependent on something else.
If someone else is having their birthday, like Valerie, then nobody's going to come to my birthday.
Oh.
Yes.
Mm.
So the likelihood changes based on the number of people going to Valerie's party, right? So let's put that. What else happens when your probability depends on something else? When there's a dependent event happening, what else? Can you do that thing multiple times just like you would if you were by yourself?
No, I can have a bunch of birthday parties and neither can Valerie. We only have one birthday.
You only have one birthday, but you can go to lots of birthday parties, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully you have lots of birthdays over your whole lifetime, right?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you decide that you're going to Valerie's birthday, can you go to Valerie's birthday twice in that same day?
That's weird. Why would I go there twice?
Would you do that?
No.
Or would you-
And come back.
No, but I could go to April's and Valerie's on the same day.
not if they're at the same time, right?
Oh, no, probably not.
And you
Okay.
go to Valerie's party.
So if I have chosen to go to April's party, I can't now put April's party back in my choices like I've already picked, right?
No.
So we're going to say that there's no replacement. And we talked a little bit about this where we said, if you choose April's party, what does that mean for Valerie's party?
Can't go.
You can't go. So one outcome affects the other outcome.
Oh, Valerie, are you having a party?
No.
Okay, good, because you didn't send me an invitation. I was wondering if you were having a party or not. Because I was, I was going to wonder about that.
I'm so excited we're all in on this event. Let's talk about what are the same between my independent events and my dependent events. What do they have in common?
Multiple.
Multiple outcomes. Excellent. What else is the same?
Well, they're both events.
They are both events. What else?
They have some probability.
Anything else? All right. What's different for independent events that only lives there?
Doesn't depend on anything else.
Doesn't depend on anything else. What else?
You can put things back in.
Replacement. What is just for dependent events?
It does depend on something else.
Anything else?
You have to pick a party.
No replacement. So then are you having a party, April?
Yeah, and I'm gonna have cupcakes.
Anything else?
Outcome changes?
Yes. All right, now let's go back and look at these categories. I need to make a category out of these characteristics that you talked about over here in light categories. How can I group these?
Use the word multiple twice.
All right. So maybe multiple outcomes. Well, that's restating what we already talked about. Can we just say outcomes? Would you be okay with that? April, the look on your face is confused.
Well,
Use your words and tell me.
that the one that says unlike says outcomes too, and then I don't. Does it go in both places?
Well, when we're thinking about outcomes, remember we're thinking about a big bucket that multiple outcomes can live in. So is just outcomes by itself, all of the things that could happen, is that a big enough bucket, or do we need to choose a different bucket?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. Is it okay if we come back to it and I ask you that same question in a second? Okay. The other thing that happens when we are talking about probabilities is how we calculate them. We're going to be multiplying those little fractions together.
This is fractions?
So, in probability, yeah, we usually use fractions because the decimals and the percents aren't as friendly. How could we word that?
Fractions aren't friendly.
Fractions are as fun as you want them to be.
What'd you say?
So when we're looking at the probabilities, we know from our like characteristics that they're going to be multiplied, right? How can we put that in a bucket so that when we come back at this, we know that this is a category? How could we rephrase that?
Many.
Use more words and tell me what you're thinking.
Well, if we're going to multiply them together, that's going to make more. So there's going to be many of them.
Okay.
Or less of them. Sometimes when you multiply by a fraction, it makes less.
Sometimes it does. And what do we call it when we have a fraction and we are doing things with it?
Cooking.
Say that again.
Cooking.
We are cooking. What are we cooking when we don't have food?
Small numbers.
We do have numbers. Okay, so what do we do with numbers when we do math with them sometimes? What do we call that?
Operations.
We do operations. And sometimes those operations, when we put them together, are called what? We use something like this.
A calculator.
So what do we do with numbers?
Calculate them.
We calculate them. So in this box, as a like category, we're going to put, we calculate probabilities.
Oh. With fractions.
With fractions.
And not cooking.
It's not cooking. I mean, you could cook, but probably not with the numbers. And then this category, what are the buckets where the differences live? What could we say about that?
Like replacement, you mean?
Yes. That's exactly what I mean, Jane. What else?
Dependence.
Dependence. Now, use more words and tell me what you mean by dependence so that when we come back to this, we'll know what we were talking about.
Sometimes there's rules and sometimes there's no rules.
Sometimes there's rules and sometimes there's no rules. Use more words.
So I can do it by myself, but sometimes I have to pick one or the other.
I like that. So by myself, sometimes, or sometimes I have to pick.
So can
And when I have to pick, what does that do to my number of choices?
Makes it smaller.
Mhm.
So that also changes my number of outcomes sometimes. All right, so we have like categories, we have unlike categories, and now we need to come down here and come up with our summary statement. Do you remember how we do that? Valerie, you remember how we do that? I see lots of no's.
We take the overall concept and the concepts and the like categories and make a sentence.
Yes, we do. So we're gonna say, what are the two concepts we're talking about?
Independent and dependent.
So independent are type of what?
Then
Mm-hmm.
That are alike how?
because they have outcomes.
And what else?
You can calculate the probability using fractions.
But not cooking.
Right.
Yes. And are unalike how?
Because sometimes there's replacements and sometimes there's not.
What else?
Sometimes they depend on another event.
And what does that do?
And
Changes the outcome.
Fantastic. So take a minute to look over the concept comparison table that we've done together, because we're going to do our review in just a second. Are we done?
Mhm.
Oh, I don't know what my face looks like through all of